Right, the first step of cooking coxinha, or anything for that matter, is to have a clean kitchen. The second step is to make sure you gather all the right materials. Alright, so now that you've got everything acquired, let's go over what it all is. First, you're going to need a whole chicken. For the veggies and stuff, all I use are some garlic, some red onion, lemon. For the spices, you're going to want salt, pepper, and some smoked paprika. For the cheese, you're going to use cream cheese and chives, and we're going to pipe it. So get yourself like a small sandwich bag. And then you get some tomato paste, some all-purpose flour, almond milk. Some people use egg whites. You'll see it later, but just almond milk, some just regular peanut oil, and some breadcrumbs. And the first thing that we're gonna want to do is cut the chicken open and start to boil it. So we're gonna do that right now. Alright, so now once you got the chicken in the water, you want to start to get it to a boil. So crank it up to high, but now we're going to want to season it because we want to use the water later on for a broth. To season the broth, we're going to be using half an onion, some garlic cloves, black pepper, and some good old salt. So I'm going to prep that and throw it into the chicken. Alright, I'm no professional chef, so the way I cut these onions and these garlics is not necessarily professional, but for the way that we're doing it, it's just fine. So you're going to take your onions and your garlic. The onions you just kind of want to chop up until they're just like, doesn't really matter, you know, we're just trying to get the flavor in there. So, and the garlic, I just press down to kind of break up a little bit, so it kind of has you know, it breaks that shape a little bit, so it gets that flavor in there. We're gonna, I did a lot. This is a lot of garlic, but that's the way we like it. All right, and then for the salt, salt is your friend. Salt is not your enemy, okay? So put some salt in there. It's okay. And for black pepper can be your enemy, so be very careful with black pepper because it can really come out pretty fast. So just put a couple dabs in there. You're gonna want to find yourself a clean spatula. You're gonna just want to kind of mix it in there, you know? Make sure that it all gets in there. Now this stuff kind of frothing at the top here, that's not bad. That happens. You know, I'm no professional chef. There are ways that you can kind of get it out of there. Sometimes people like to boil the chicken until all this stuff comes up and then we'll replace the water for a better broth, but I'm not that fancy. So I'm just gonna get it going. Once you can kind of see it starting to like really heat up, you can actually turn the heat down and trust me, it'll still keep boiling. All right, so now once that's done, we're going to start to prep the cheese. So for the cheese we have over here, we're going to be using a cream cheese and we're going to add lemon and chives and we're going to put it into this bag here. So the first thing that we do is grab a bowl and just watch what I do. Alright, so there you go. Once the cream cheese has kind of like come to room temperature, it's going to be a little bit easier to handle. But later on, we're just going to cut a corner right there and it's going to pipe it right out. This is a really cheap way. If you got your own piper, then you can just use that. But for us, this works just fine. Now, a rule of thumb for cooking coxinha, and any cooking coxinha, is to always clean while you cook. So we're going to clean up after ourselves too. All right, so once you've cleaned up, the next step you're gonna wanna do is dice up some garlic and the rest of your onion. So we like to use a lot of garlic, so I just did the rest of the clove, or whatever it's called, and the rest of the onion. You're going to want to have a strainer ready for the chicken, as well as a bowl to catch the broth, because remember that we're going to use the broth later on to make the dough, which you'll figure out to see how we do that. And now you're just going to wait for the chicken to boil and be ready. That's going to take about an hour or so. And in the meantime, just kind of keep a close eye on the chicken. And if you're like us, snack on some onions. All right, so now the chicken is done. And the reason why you can tell usually from the chicken is done is you kind of take a knife and you stab in and you can kind of feel it just rip apart. There shouldn't be a lot of tension. Try to get to like one of the bone. And if it just easily rips apart, then it's good to go. So you're gonna take your strainer and your bowl. I always do it over the sink, and I always kind of pour away from me. And all this stuff here can go into the garbage. We're gonna clean this bowl. Ooh, hot, very hot. That stuff is very hot. All right, so we're gonna let the chicken cool down. And over here, make sure you always turn your stove up, huh? Yeah. So now we're gonna take our flour and our chicken broth. And we're gonna take 1 cup of chicken broth. Careful, it's very hot. A little bit more, that's good. And you wanna do it while the chicken broth is hot. It's very important, do it while it's hot. And you're gonna take about 2 cups of flour to 1 cup of broth. And then you're gonna take a spatula and just kind of mix it in. Just kind of keep adding and mixing until it feels right, until you have that right consistency. All right, so then once you got the dough kneaded, you're gonna want to pluck the chicken. So we're gonna want to extract all the meat from here. If you really like chicken broth, save the chicken broth. So you're gonna wanna get another bowl out to put all the chicken into. So, warning, the chicken is very, very hot. Very hot. All right, so you got the chicken deboned, and now what we're gonna do is we are going to slice it up. So grab a cutting board, kind of dry it off a little bit, shred it however that you do it, and there you go, shredded. All right, so the next step is to heat up some of your onions. We're going to actually make what goes inside the coxinha now. That's not the cheese, since we already got the cheese. So what we're gonna do is usually you put a little bit of oil, but we don't have that. So we're just gonna put the onions straight on. And you're gonna wait for the onions to kind of heat up. Again, it's okay to, have a few. Put a little salt on them to help them sweat. And we just wait. It's like a virgin olive oil, so it's good for cooking. So you do the onions first and then the garlic because you don't want to burn the garlic. Now while that's going, what you can do is you can prep your cutting board for the next step. All right, so once your onions are cooked to the amount that you want, then you're gonna wanna add your garlic. Now, fair warning, this is a lot of garlic. All right, now we're going to, once the garlic you feel is cooked enough, it doesn't take long. I'm gonna take about 2 spoonfuls of this tomato paste. And the tomato paste is gonna help kind of bind everything together. So when you try to put it into the dough, it's just a little bit easier. So I put it in before the chicken so I can kind of like let it cook a little bit, kind of like thin out, so it's not all in one big ball. At this point too, it's done cooking, so turn off the stove. And now we're gonna start to add the chicken. All right, so that's gonna be the core kind of stuff right there. Now you're going to season to taste, as they call it. So we're going to put a little bit of black pepper. A little bit of salt. And because Belzebel loves it, we're going to put a little bit of smoked paprika. Okay, so once that's ready, you're gonna set it aside. Make sure not to burn your tabletop counter. Now it's time to prepare the dough. So we kneaded the dough earlier. Now we're going to do it over here. I always recommend to have like a little bowl of flour next to you when you get ready. And we're going to kind of coat this area with flour. We're gonna get some of our dough, and then we're gonna get a rolling pin. All right, so once you got it rolled out, I like to take a pizza cutter, and what you're gonna do is just kind of cut it into sections for you to create it. And then you repeat that until you have enough dough slices to work with. All right, then you want to prep where you actually fill the coxinha. So you're gonna get yourself 2 little small bowls and a plate. You're gonna take your breadcrumbs. You're gonna pour that into 1 bowl. Trust me, we'll use that much breadcrumbs. Then you want to take your almond milk, fresh almond milk, just bought today. You're gonna pour that into the other bowl. All right, then you're gonna take your cheese. You're gonna cut a hole right in the end so they can use that to put the cheese on. All right, so now you're basically prepped to make the coxinha, prepare the coxinha. The next step you're gonna do is you're gonna take your oil and you're going to pour that into your, where you're going to actually cook the coxinha. A lot of people have deep fryers and you can use a deep fryer instead, but if you don't, just get some good old peanut oil, get a tall pot and turn it on to about, I say like, turn it on high, and then you're gonna wanna turn it to about like 1.5 to 2 once it's good to go. So now we'll show you how to actually put the coxinha inside the dough. All right, Belz is gonna do this part because she's better at it. So you're gonna take your little square here, stretch it out to kind of like make a little circle. Remember, the thinner the better. You're gonna take a little bit of the coxinha stuff there, kind of put it right into the palm of your hand. Less is better than more. See, she's stretching it out there. Lily, stop begging. So then you take the cheese here. You're gonna pipe a little bit of cheese on there, or a lot, however you like it. Perfect. Dum, dum, dum. Yeah, so wrap it right up. She makes it look a lot easier than it actually is. Now, a typical coxinha shape is this little teardrop shape. It's good. It's okay if a little bit is sticking out, it's not that big. Then you're gonna put it into the almond milk here. You roll it in the breadcrumbs, and it's ready to go into the deep fryer. So we're gonna make a whole bunch of those, and then we'll show you how to put them in the deep fryer and what they look like afterwards. A whole bunch rolled up, you're going to put it in the oil. As you can see, we've already been making them. This is our last batch. I would take tongs, and you're going to slowly drop it in. And it's gonna start to fry, as you can see. You can see this oil's a little dirty from all the cooking. Very slowly. Remember, this oil is extremely hot.
And it's in low temperature, right?
Yes, it's in low temperature. It's just enough to stay really warm.
And you don't want the coxinhas to be brown. You want them to have a golden color.
So there's that. And when they're done, they'll come out just like this. And when you open it up,
It's cream cheese and chicken.
bon appetit.